So I'm scrolling YouTube and I see an upload from Ford Boss Me. And in that upload, it's the 7.3 liter Godzilla V8 getting some internal work done, some internal engine work done. And basically, what's happening is the lifters are failing. That's the roller that's on the lifter. And I'm watching Ford Boss Me take apart this motor and, show everybody what happened, which is nice that he does that because a lot of content creators will not do that because it can be seen as a little bit risky to show like major failures like that with very popular new engines. So I'm very happy that he was willing to show us these failures on the 7.3 liter Godzilla, and he's explaining how this happens to GM as well, and it's something with the push rod engines where the lifters can fail, particularly at the rollers. And it kind of got me thinking, is this 7.3 really going to be the best choice when it comes to reliability? And that's an interesting topic because most guys who go for the 7.3 were going for the more reliable truck when compared to the 6.7 Power Stroke or anything like that. We're going for the truck that is going to be most economical, most reliable, and it's seen as the savvy decision to go with the 7.3. And a lot of guys are thinking, should we upgrade from a 6.2 or should we go with the 7.3 because it's going to be more reliable? The push rod engine has been pushed as the more reliable option. So after watching that video from Ford Boss, I decided to do a search online at 7.3 Godzilla engine problems, and it's kind of interesting what came up. Basically, what I found by doing that Google search is that's not the first time that these lifters have had issues. There was a couple more videos from Ford Boss where like a year ago he might have had the same type of issue, and maybe a couple from like Power Stroke Tech Talk, and then even from other people where they're talking about the lifters going out. And as far as other problems, I'm guessing there's some problems with these coil packs and these spark plug wires. From here, it looks like a pretty clean design, but I guess sometimes they're either popping off. I do remember there was a huge recall or something like that a couple years back. I remember seeing that on TFL where there was some ignition coil pack issues and some spark plug wiring issues, but that's pretty minor. But I was watching YouTube, and a video from Brian's Lawn Maintenance came up where he hit a bump and a coil pack popped off and actually shut the truck down, which is not a good thing to happen. So is this engine going to be, this ultra reliable thing that it's been pushed to be? When we think about going to a push rod engine, it's mainly, in my opinion, to benefit the manufacturer, not the consumer. Because when you think about it, basically what that does is it makes it a cheaper engine to produce overall. But there are some benefits to the consumer. For example, if the engine is cheaper to manufacture, then you can, in theory, put better internals inside of the motor, which is something that was done. It's a better crankshaft in the 7.3 as compared to the 6.2, which has the 7.3 has a forged crank, and there's probably some other internals and stuff that are better in here. It leaves a little more cost per unit to do different things, maybe accessories on the engine. Like we have a nice dual alternator setup here that you couldn't get that with the 6.2, and you have the smaller package, which means easier serviceability for the consumer. But the pushrod design isn't inherently more reliable than what we had before, the 6.2 liter V8 with the longer timing chain and the overhead cam system. It is very few failures. There are a few, though. If you look online, you do find a few roller cam failures or valve spring failures. Not too many, though. I feel like the 7.3 might be having a few more issues, but not to say that this motor is not reliable necessarily. I mean, it's still quite reliable. It doesn't mean that I got to go out and sell it, but it's definitely something to think about. Long term, something that you keep out of warranty, because it was nice in the video that I saw Ford Boss doing. He's like, "Yeah, we're replacing the engine. It's under warranty." The danger is you get one of these past that warranty, that powertrain warranty, or out of the mileage or whatever for that powertrain warranty, and you have an engine fail. Well, that supersedes all of the benefits of it being a more reliable power plant and a cheaper to maintain power plant than even a Power Stroke. Because if you have an engine replaced where it's in a Power Stroke, the Power Stroke's a pretty solid engine as long as you do everything right. I mean, the CP4 is a big problem, whereas this whole motor could probably be replaced for the cost of a CP4 failure. So, but there's things you can do though with that. There's the disaster kits and stuff like that, particularly the S&S disaster prevention kit's pretty good there. But it's a pretty interesting thing. One of the things with that whole roller cam issue, or the lifter issue with the roller that fails, man, it really goes to show that you can't be playing games with the maintenance on the 7.3. Even Ford Boss has been saying, like, make sure you maintain your 7.3 correctly. But what really struck me when the motors that he took apart and showed on camera, those engines were pretty well maintained. I mean, they were clean inside, 30,000 miles, and looking like the oil's been kept up with. So for this engine, I need to sit down and order the oil for the first oil change. I ran out the whole like 5,000 miles, and the whole oil life percentage is right there at like 15% oil life left. I ran it all the way to the end, and it's time to change it. But I'm thinking I'm going to go with like AMSOIL, something real decent. Just because of this motor, it's going to really be calling for, in my opinion, it's going to be calling for some good oil. But the question really is this engine design better? I can tell you that the power and performance, especially with me, I've been loading this thing up to the max ratings of in every way, plowing snow and hauling tons and tons of salt, and the power is there. You know, the power is definitely better than the 6.2. This is an F350. It's got a better rear suspension with the sway bar and all that stuff. It's definitely more stable than the 250 felt with the kind of weights on it. But the power is definitely there. But I'm curious if the longevity is going to be there. It's definitely something to be aware of if you have one of these motors. It's definitely something to be thinking about. Let's run some, real good synthetic oil, just because a pushrod engine probably has more load on components because it's got to do more. You got one camshaft in the middle. It's got to transfer that movement to the push rod and through the lifter and all that stuff. So these engines do not rev as high as overhead cam engines without valve float, which is not too much of an issue in these truck situations because neither one of these motors even really rev too high. But if revving is the ultimate goal, then an overhead cam engine can technically rev higher. But I think both of these engines from the factory rev as is about the same. But if we were trying to build a high rev application motor, then for high rev applications for like a modified engine, I think the overhead cam would be better. But I think both of the rotating mass assemblies on these motors are the limiting factor as far as the max RPM. But let me know what you guys think. Comment below what your thoughts are on this topic of, is this 7.3 reliable? It's most certainly a pretty reliable engine, but is it going to be the most reliable engine? It's still to be determined. We're guinea pigs. We're testing the motor out. Yes, Ford probably put it through some kind of test, but the only real way to test this engine is to have it out on the market for 10 years, and that is basically what you have with the 6.2 with the 6-speed. It's an engine that's just been tried and true. It's just been out there for a long time, and I'm sure when it came out, at first it probably had some kind of problems similar to the 7.3, but despite them, Ford, trying to make a simple, bulletproof, old-school design, there does seem to be unforeseen possible issues with it. So Is it still worth it? I do think it's worth it if you really do need the diesel alternative. The power has been fun. I've been enjoying plowing with it, hauling with it. So it's still not as good as a diesel, not as powerful as a diesel and all that, but it's definitely adequate for this type of work. And I've definitely gotten used to it for sure. So anyway, comment below. Quick video today. My name is Sean. This is DS Trucks. Thank you for tuning in. See you in the next one. Over and out.